Now we welcome Denise Rucker Krepp, who is a former Obama appointee, a American Coast Guard veteran, and also a former commissioner in Washington, D.C. to the Advisory Neighborhood Commission 6B10. It's where
Mm.
you were elected for 2014 until 2022. Thank you for joining us, Denise.
Thanks for having me today.
You're a lifelong Democrat to the point
Yes.
that you even caught the attention of the Obama administration, as I understand, still a Democrat, but you've been someone who's been very vocal. When I lived in Capitol Hill, in your neighborhood, it was very vocal on the issue of crime
Yeah.
and the kind of situation that brought us from where this city was in 2019. I've been here since 2004 or so, to where we got to in 2022. What changed? What made the city from such an upward trajectory to suddenly one where we're seeing federal law enforcement in the streets trying to enforce laws? Why is that necessary? How did we get here?
The DC Council. Let's just be honest. It was the DC Council. Yeah. They were writing laws. They were writing laws that were telling juveniles. And by the way, we got to unpack juveniles. Okay. So when I was a kid, a juvenile was somebody under the age of 18. Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
But according to the DC Council, a juvenile is somebody under the age of 24. Let
that's
me,
wild.
yeah, let me repeat that. 24 years old. So they were saying, hey, you're a juvenile until you're 24. You could have kids, but you yourself are a juvenile. And we're not going to consider, you fully developed, that you will be fully accountable for your crimes. And I remember going to Charles Allen at the time, who's the Ward 6 councilman. We're going, Charles, what are you doing, dude? I mean, a 24-year-old man is a man, not a juvenile. And if you tell a 24-year-old that if they commit armed carjacking and they won't be held fully accountable, then what do you think is going to happen? And he just blew me off and he said, Denise, I know what I'm doing. Okay, you definitely knew what you were doing. You pretty much invited President Trump to come in and bring the National Guard in to solve your problem, which you created. That's why
I
we're
mean,
here.
at the age of 24, I knew some of my best
Mhm,
friends were 24-year-olds. They were 2 years out of the Marine Corps already with
mhm.
corps of combat under their belts. They were full-blown adults and a long way toward it. So Charles Allen, there was a recall petition for him. He's kind
Mhm.
of seems like the left-wing leader of the DC City Council or one of the most vocal champions of some of these causes. Where did he come from? I was in DC for years and I never really heard his name until I moved to Capitol Hill.
So he was the chief of staff for Tommy Wells, his predecessor, who was the Ward 6 council member. And then he, I believe, had played at the national level and done some politicking for national level Democrats before working for Tommy Wells. He's not from Washington, D.C. He never served in the military. And quite frankly, I don't know what he's doing. And I say that as a Democrat about another Democrat. He is not somebody that I thought was a good representation of Ward 6. And Ward 6, for folks who don't live in Washington, D.C., includes Capitol Hill, it includes the Supreme Court, includes Congress. And so the decisions he was making was not only impacting those of us who live here, but individuals who come here as elected officials at the federal level. It wasn't a good thing.
So what happened to this recall petition? Seems like there was enough anger amongst, I mean, DC is
Mhm.
94% Democrat, and with a smattering of libertarian Republicans and Romney
Yeah.
types. It's not by any stretch a red area, but there was enough anger amongst your fellow Democrats that there was a recall petition, and yet it
Yeah.
failed.
Yeah. It failed. And I think it failed because people looked at the recall effort and said it was funded by Republicans. And when people said that, I laughed. I said, "Are you kidding me? It wasn't funded by Republicans. It was funded by Democrats. It was Democrats telling Charles Allen that what he was doing was unacceptable." Unfortunately, the majority of Democrats did not agree with that. And Charles disliked me so much that he moved me out of the ward. That was so for those of us he disagreed with, he moved us to Ward 7. So I didn't physically move my house, but via the political mechanisms he was using, I got moved to another ward so that I could not. I had been considering running against him, but and he knew that, so that's why he moved me.
What is
Yeah.
we're now a couple days into this operation from the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you see some people on the news. I mean, the Washington Post interviewed someone who said, "Yeah, I got stabbed, but I don't feel unsafe. I got stabbed right next to the Capitol, but I don't feel unsafe." They're finding some kind of wild people that say that the city, the crime rate is fine.
Mhm.
What do you tell those people about what it actually feels like here on Capitol Hill and what it's felt like these past 4 years on Capitol Hill regarding the actual crime rate?
I say come to my neighborhood, and I live 18 blocks from the Capitol. I live half a block from the National Guard Armory. I've had a shootout in front of my house. Two men were on opposing sides of the block and started shooting at each other. I've had a man shoot a gun off in front of my house. I've had armed carjackings, rapes, muggings, burglaries, stabbings, assaults. I'm sorry, I can't name all the crimes. So I'm not really sure why they didn't come to my block, but that's what's going on my block. And those crimes are unacceptable. Those crimes should not be occurring. And we need help in stopping those crimes. But the biggest help we need right now is two things. One, we need more prosecutors. So we need the president to devote more prosecutors to the new U.S. Attorney's Office, who, by the way, loving her, absolutely loving the message that she has no tolerance. But the other thing we need to do is change the DC laws. I mean, the fact that we consider a 24-year-old a juvenile is insane. A 24-year-old is a man. A 24-year-old who commits armed carjacking should not be told, there, we don't think you're fully developed. It should be, congratulations, you've committed a crime, you're going to jail, and you're staying there. So again, two things. Give more attorneys to the U.S. prosecutor, and two, change the DC laws that put us in this situation.
So I lived in that same neighborhood, about
Mhm.
1 block from the National Guard Armory, 18 blocks from the Capitol. And it was a nice family neighborhood when I moved there in 2019. It was a lot of young people walking babies around, a lot of people walking dogs. You'd have
Mhm.
package thieves. It was basically all the time you'd get package stolen. But it changed so much after the school shut down and the law stopped being enforced. I remember walking home from work one night in the fall, so it was dark already, and I ended up realizing I was walking through an open air gun market. They were selling nines, and I realized that's not a measurement for drugs. You're selling handguns right here on the street
Mhm.
on a main thoroughfare of Washington, D.C. And the police actually did end up responding. They went all around, but they had spotters. So when squad cars and unmarked cars came in from all around, spotters up the block told them this was organized activity. What's the sort of response that you've seen though, in the communication that you've had with the Metropolitan Police Department? Have they just given up? I mean, sometimes I'd call the police and they'd say, "What do you want me to do?"
Yes.
Somebody just hit and ran and they slammed into a post office truck, a federal vehicle, and then they sped off in a stolen car. And he's like, "Oh, well, what do you want me to do? They're probably gone by now." Or do you generally find that police officers wished that they could do more and just felt their hands were tied?
The latter. I've come to know a lot of the police over the years because I've lived here for almost 25 years in the house that I'm in. And over the years, I've been hearing more and more, I wish I could do more. I wish I could do things. But the next sentence usually is, I can't because of laws written by the DC Council, one, or two, there aren't enough of us. The police are retiring numbers that are just stunning. So if we have police retiring and prosecutors, which was happening under the Biden team and the Obama team, not prosecuting, we're in a very dangerous situation. So I guess I should add a number three, which is we need more police. We need to fully fund the police. Now, one of the problems we're having right now is that Congress needs to pass that legislation to help us get that money out of our budget because there's a freeze right now. And that's what I'm hearing from the police is that the mayor is saying until Congress releases that money, she's not hiring any more police. So it's police retiring and then the lack of hiring.
Is that
That's a
tied to the
problem.
budget or is that
Yeah,
specific legislation?
it is. I think we're at like $1 billion Congress has got a hold on right now for the DC budget. And that's tied into it. So we really do need them to release that money so that we can hire more police. Because if they don't do that, they've got a hiring freeze right now and they're not going to hire more police. That's a
So,
problem.
so I was a DC Democrat, but not
Mhm.
like you. I was not getting appointments from Obama nor voting for him. But I became a Democrat because of what I saw the treatment of Adrian Fenty, the young,
Mhm.
charismatic reformer whose cardinal sin against Washington was saying maybe we shouldn't be graduating high schoolers who are uneducated and literally illiterate. And this is a serious problem because what's the future for these kids? You can't even join the military. You can't, there's no opportunities except for menial labor or crime if you can't read, if you can't spell, if you can't communicate, if you don't have any skills. And because of that, he was thrown out. But then we go through, you have Mayor Gray, and now we have Muriel Bowser. What's the story with the mayor? She seemed to me to be just another one in the kind of 2000s tradition of pro-business, kind of moderate DC mayors, but she changed her tune so much in 2020 with President Trump coming here and with BLM Plaza and this and that. And now she seems to be working closely, or 2016, excuse me. Now she seems to be working closely with the president. And maybe she's just a hostage politically to the situation, but seems to be cooperating much more fully than the city council. What's the background on Muriel Bowser?
Bowser has been fighting with the DC Council for years. The DC Council was writing the laws that were saying, hey, again, to the juveniles, they're not going to be held accountable. And the mayor was going, I don't agree with that. The mayor is not where the DC Council is. Again, if folks want to point fingers, and we should, by the way, it's the DC Council. Bowser did not agree to that big, I'm going to call it their crime bill they were trying to pass at the end of 22 and beginning of 23. I mean, she refused to sign it. And not only did she refuse to sign it, but you had the House and the Senate that said no to the DC Council. So Bowser is very moderate. Bowser is good on crime. But she has Phil Mendelson and she has Charles Allen. And as long as you have those two in the DC Council, we're going to have the situation we have right now.
So I know you're busy and have to go, but I have one more question that our viewers all around the country are dying to know. What what has been the actual reaction outside the pages of the Washington Post or outside the CNN reporters who are pretending that they've never been afraid of crime in this city? Has the reaction been mixed or is it angry? I mean, DC is a pretty independent city that doesn't love Donald Trump, but people are also afraid. So what kind of feedback have you been hearing from your neighbors on Capitol Hill?
It's mixed. And we're blessed to have a lot of people in our neighborhood, and it's a very diverse mix. I think you've got some people that are afraid of having the National Guard. You have some people that aren't paying attention. And then you have some people very quietly saying, hey, maybe this is a good thing. I mean, just a second ago, you said, the Democrats who were pretending that they weren't afraid of crime. I was amazed when I was elected official, the number of people, both Democrat and Republican, who came to me and said, you keep on going, Denise, keep on doing what you're doing. They won't say it loudly, but quietly they'll whisper and say, they'll say, I too am afraid of crime. I mean, look what Carl Racine said on his way out the door as Attorney General. He was afraid of carjacking. He was afraid that his family was going to be carjacked. If the DC Attorney General is saying that out loud, then everybody else is too, whether or not they're going to admit it.
Yeah, I always wonder that because Charles Allen has a wife and children in the district. I'm thinking, what are you doing, putting them at risk like that? But that's interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective.
Well, thanks for having me. And folks, I've lived in DC for a long time and I love my city. I just want a safe city. That's all I want.
Right. I miss 2019. It was
So
a
do
wonderful time.
So do I.
Denise Rucker Krepp, thank you for joining us and thank you for serving.